are gonna be able to join, or do we know?
He's not appeared yet, so,
Okay.
I mean, it's open to him. He was sent the link earlier, and I asked him to confirm that he received it, but I have not received anything.
Okay, we'll give it another 60 seconds or so, then we'll get started. Unless there's any objections to waiting another minute to see if he can join.
No objections.
He may have to,
I can stand it.
he may be installing the plug-in or whatever, so.
Today's agenda?
Sir?
Do you have a day's agenda,
I
today's
worked for
agenda?
26 years.
Do I have what?
Today's agenda?
started
Yeah,
out as a
yeah, well,
partnership
there's
with
nothing on the agenda,
Stephanie.
so unless we add
Stephanie,
things to the agenda.
pass that to Stephanie, and
All
then
right.
she can
we
pass
don't
it to
have
Ben.
anything, we just have her report.
Okay.
And I started out being able to fly first class free, because I was in supervision, I was in management, you know.
We just go.
And I wound up
So you
having
want
to pay
that
the
over
flight
here in the
coach.
middle, or is that?
So, that helped, but we used
All
to
right.
fly a lot. It was first class.
Are we are live, okay. All right, everybody, would love to call to order this special call meeting of the Spalding County Board of Elections and Registration. It's December 16th, 2022. It's a minute or two after 4 p.m. Appreciate everybody's patience with our slightly late start. If everybody would, please silence your cell phones and all other electronic devices, and we're going to ask everybody to stand for the invocation and prayer. Jim, would you mind? Sir, I don't know whichever one.
Okay.
All right, very good. Look, same stuff. Here we go.
Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. We come before thee this evening to pray for thy guidance, for thy direction upon this meeting, that which we do might be to the benefit of the electors of Spalding County and to thy greater glory, in Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Would y'all please join me in the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Next up is citizen comment. Speakers must sign up prior to the meeting, provide their names, addresses, and the topic they wish to discuss. Speakers must direct your remarks to the board and not to individual board members or to the audience. Personal disagreements with individual board members or employees are not a matter of public concern, and personal attacks will not be tolerated. The chairman has the right to limit your comments in the interest of disposing of the board's business in an efficient and respectable manner. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes to speak on their chosen topics as they relate to matters pertinent to the jurisdiction of the Board of Elections and Registration. No questions will be asked by any of the board members during citizen comments. Outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated. Common courtesy and civility are expected at all times during the meeting. No speaker will be permitted to speak more than 3 minutes or more than once unless the board votes to suspend this rule. With that, we've just got one speaker today, Dr. Yoshunda Jones. So, want to come on up?
Dr. Yoshunda Jones. On behalf of citizens of Spalding County, I would like to address some concerns regarding the elections office. There were voter statuses changed from active to inactive by the elections office, even though these individuals voted in the primary election in 2022, and their addresses have remained the same for years. The elections office was sent an open records request asking for information on those voters that were affected and received a response back that no information existed. This was odd considering that there were a number of voters whose statuses had been changed recently from active to inactive by the elections office. A number of voters did not receive absentee ballots that were requested by them from the elections office. A number of voters mailed in absentee ballots that the elections office could not locate. Early voters for the December 6th runoff election received absentee forms for early voting that had the Republican box checked in the primary election section, and although this may not seem like a big issue, it definitely caused a lot of confusion with voters. The election supervisor should have taken the time to correct this issue. There have been a number of open records requests submitted to the elections office that have not been responded to in the required time frame of 3 business days according to the Georgia Open Records Act. The election supervisors has had to be sent email reminders on a number of occasions about these open records requests. The information received from submitted open records requests do not match with final election reports. For example, an OR request for provisional ballots cast on December 6th, the response from election supervisor stated 1 provisional ballot. The official election report shows 6. ORR request for provisional ballots cast on November 8th, the response from the election supervisor stated 21. The official election report shows 16. We also want to point out the refusal of the board chair to hold a meeting concerning Saturday voting for the runoff election, even though the state Supreme Court ruled that counties could offer early voting the Saturday after Thanksgiving. As a final note, we also look forward to hearing the conclusion of the investigation into the fake ballot that was planted, discovered during early voting in October.
Thank you. All right, next up, we've got adoption of the agenda. We need, for minutes missing?
They are.
Okay, no, we've got minutes, but we need to,
You need to be able to view them.
yeah, we need to approve the minutes,
That's
and that's not on the agenda. We need to amend the agenda to add that. So, motion would be in order to amend the agenda to add the, okay, so to add
I
the,
move that we amend the agenda to add the minutes.
to add the approval of the minutes.
Approval of the minutes.
Okay. And
Second.
second, okay. Got that, okay. All in favor? Okay, that passes. We've got minutes on there. Do we have anything else that we need to cover today?
I have two.
Yes, sir?
Just like to talk about the status of the bylaws and where we are at the moment,
Okay.
okay? And secondly, just a brief discussion on the upcoming training session,
On the upcoming, I'm sorry.
training session
Oh.
on January the 3rd.
Okay, all right. So, guess the motion would be discussion about bylaws and discussion in regards to, I think we've got multiple sessions, right? Or multiple possible sessions.
I just am not clear about the title of what it is that you're talking about.
Probably
I-
The workshop is what you're, is that the word?
It started out as a special meeting, and then it morphed into,
What is it gonna, so I guess the
Workshop.
discussion is what is it gonna be?
well, and I'd like to know
Cl-
what's gonna happen.
Cla-
You know, 'cause
clar-
I had more there than just the title.
So clarity around the upcoming workshop, is that
Yes,
agreeable?
yes, it is.
Okay. All right.
I second.
Second? Okay, all right, all in favor? All right, do we have any other agenda items? Yeah. Okay, motion will be in order to adopt the agenda as amended. Roy,
Motion.
Jim, second, all in favor?
All right.
Carries unanimously. Okay, very good. Next up's gonna be the minutes. Do we have any corrections? Do we not have minutes
Not
from?
yet, you do not.
We do not have minutes from, okay. So, yeah,
Have them
I
in
see September.
January.
Ma'am,
You'll have them in January.
we will have them in January. So, okay, so that would be why that was not on there. So we will have those in January. Understand everybody's been busy, so, appreciate that. So, we will go ahead and move on to the next item, which would be the,
Those minutes, when they're ready, will need to go ahead and be posted,
online, yes, ma'am.
yes, even prior to approval.
Even prior to approval. Got that, Kim? Very good. Okay, so next up would be Jim's discussion on bylaws. The floor is yours, sir.
I want to acknowledge that we've gone through a very busy period of time in the election office and even with the board. So that being said, the comments so far have been limited but helpful.
Yeah, the mic.
I'm sorry. How about now?
You
Okay, it's better.
gotta be about this far away for
Okay,
it to pick
good.
up.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm acknowledging that we just been through a very busy period of time with the elections, with the runoff. So Jim has provided some comments on the board, which I appreciate. Dexter hasn't. So I've made the edits as best I can in light of my understanding of 769 and 202. So I guess what I'm asking is, how can we proceed? And let's be honest about, we're also in the holiday time with Christmas and then New Year's. So I want to suggest that maybe early January, maybe around the 10th, that I would send out the president's draft of the bylaws for review. In other words, to handle it by email, and I'm looking for discussions or other ideas on how to proceed.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that would be fine. Kind of dovetails into, we've got state legislative session starting up again about that same time and,
Right.
um,
So I'm suggesting after the 6th.
after the
So
sixth.
that, I'm just, arbitrary time would say the 10th. And then, once people have a chance to review the bylaws, then we need to decide, do we need a special meeting, or is email communication enough? So basically, what I'm asking for is how do we go from here?
What's the process for both review and then adoption, I suppose, is
Exactly.
what, to clarify. As far as the review, I think email would be fine. As far as
And-
adopting bylaws,
Mr. O'Brien, if you'd like to go ahead and send those to me, send the draft to me,
Okay.
then I'll try and get those reviewed before you send them out to the rest of the board.
That's perfect.
And, our adoption of them would just be at a regular
Regular
meeting
meeting. There-
unless,
there's-
unless there was the desire of the board for a workshop to discuss any changes that everybody wanted to make.
so, yeah, so, tentatively send to her, she'll make sure that there's no contradictions to law as best we can with the way things are, the way existing law is. If there's any major things that we need to escalate to a meeting to discuss, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll just bring it up, either in January or February's meeting would be
Perfect.
what sounds like well, actually, it would be February, it would probably be the soonest, would be my guess. Sound acceptable?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and there's no need to like have a second reading or there's nothing around that with bylaws, right? Okay, all right, very good. Okay, I think so. And yeah, that kind of, so it kind of does dovetail into the other item you brought up, which is, what the heck are we meeting about in January? What's the workshop in January? I admit I was somewhat confused with, Dexter had an ask about, Vincent Institute maybe coming out and doing like team building type thing at the last meeting. Was that got brought up, as well as, the idea of having a legislative, like workshop, which is, I think that is actually what everything kind of morphed into. But yes, there was an immense amount of, I think, confusion from all sides in terms of what everybody said, meant, and heard and understood. So, but I believe we're at a point of clarity around the proposed meeting now on the January 3rd. Okay, thank you. On January 3rd as a workshop with our state legislators, if they are able to attend, which right now do we have confirmation? I know,
Daniel did confirm.
okay, and is Karen confirmed too?
Representative Knight? I have not.
Yeah, and so if they're not able to attend, or if only one's able to attend, we may have to reschedule, but then the state legislators
Ninth.
start back on the 9th, and that's gonna make things even more difficult to get them in front of us. And that kind of goes back to, I don't envy the task of trying to create bylaws around 769 and 202 and open records and meetings and the such. And, they're going to go back in, and the intent there was that they hear, our feedback of what we all as a group and individually think about as well as what Kim and staff think about, you know, the effects of what legislation has on us trying to do our jobs and poll workers and the supervisor and everybody else trying to do their jobs. And, you know, there's a huge gap between, you know, if you're a legislator, you know, everything, there's only like one tool, well, it's two tools, laws and taxes, right, that you got to work with. And, you know, not everything can be solved with those. And, you know, my concern would be that, you know, more changes or more things are passed that make things even, that make things even more complicated, or, and maybe don't actually solve any sort of the concerns that we all have around security and integrity. And, you know, that we're, you know, in business and technology, in a lot of cases, people try to solve people problems with technology. And in a lot of cases, it's an HR problem, or it's a process problem, and it has nothing to do with the phone or the application or anything. And so, that, you know, that was kind of where, at least where I was coming from with, hoping that we could get, you know, our reps and senators' ears prior to them going back into session, so that they could properly advocate for us, and particularly for the office staff that's going to have to make their legislative decrees come to life. You know, one thing that was in the that got left on the floor last session was around security of ballot paper, which, like, we absolutely positively need to secure, you know, the secure vote paper, you know, better. But the way things were written was going to add just an immense amount of administrative overhead, and was not really solving the issue of, you know, solving the issue at hand. So that's just one example. But
Okay.
I'm sure you got, it was like you're nodding, have something to add, so.
Yeah. Since this is not a regular election board meeting, and whenever we have 3 board members, there's a quorum.
This is a public meeting, yes, sir.
Right.
This is totally public meeting.
So will the public have an opportunity to interface, to respond to the legislators?
I don't think that's the, oh, go ahead.
That is not the standard format in a workshop meeting, because the purpose of the workshop is for you to be able to interact with the legislators. It's not a town hall meeting for them.
Right.
So no, they're not expecting to be, they would not be expecting to have a town hall type meeting.
Yeah, what Karen, when she sent her email over, was, you know, she was framing it as a listening meeting, was what she's wanting to hear what we all have to say in terms of, we've had to live with 202 and 769, and so it's Kim and staff. And so, you know, what do they need to do to help, you know, to try to not make anything any worse, and hopefully make things better, is my understanding of the purpose, unless.
My opinion is that's a shame. In other words, I don't know why that can't happen. It's very rare that the citizens have a chance to address the lawmakers. And if the intent is for them to listen, then why not listen to more than the board? Why not listen to people who are just as concerned about election integrity as we are?
So it would totally be their prerogative to have a town hall where, you know, their constituents could talk to them. But, you know, we're the Spalding County Board of Elections, and, you know, that's not, and as Stephanie said, like, that's not generally the format of workshops like that. This would be following a similar format as
Okay.
county commissioners or other boards and legislators.
I was a training manager for UIT United Information Technologies for 5 years, and I ran a lot of workshops all over the country, and I just don't understand, maybe because I am new to politics, that I don't understand why elected officials wouldn't want to hear from their constituents.
I don't, so I'm not sure if I understand the framing
Well, I'm
of,
saying that
of,
there's a
let me-
lot of
lem-
formats in a workshop.
Yeah, if I can finish my sentence, I don't understand the framing of it being mutually exclusive, that, you know, us having basically one-to-one time with the legislators before they go into session is mutually exclusive to them holding a town hall or doing anything to interact with their constituents, which include us, but it's not just us. I mean, I also don't think that it's unusual or crazy that we may have a different perspective, as well as Kim and staff would have a different perspective than voters would have. And, you know, mixing the two, I just don't, I mean, I don't see how both couldn't happen, but it's not necessarily our responsibility to me, it would be the legislators' responsibility if they wanted to hold a town hall to hear from to hear from their constituents, which are obviously voters, that would be something that they totally could do. But that would be their prerogative versus this would be, Roy, I think I'm beating a dead horse here, but I held your hand
So
up.
a couple of things. Number one, I think that if we would all kind of get our ideas of things that we see that maybe need to be fixed in the new year, and even share those around, it would probably be helpful for us to kind of get some items, some questions on a list. Second thing is, there's nothing that precludes you from listening to constituents that we talk to or listen to on a regular basis and get a list of questions. Plus, the other thing is, we've just gone through the elective process for all of these legislators. They listened for the last 6 months, a year. They've heard all of those, well, they've heard lots of those kinds of things. I don't know if they've heard them all. So, Jim, I think you're kind of glossing over what you really want to say. You don't think that they're listening to their
Please
constituents?
don't attribute that. You're welcome to ask me, but that doesn't
Okay, so let me
represent.
ask you, what is it you're really trying to say?
I think the community ought to be involved, and I'm saying that
And we
real
can
clearly.
do that,
And
but not
I'm
at this
talking
meeting.
about in the workshop, and not to do so, I think is a mistake.
Okay, you're on record as saying it's a mistake, and we can have another listening session if we want to, and you can certainly get questions from whoever you want to and bring those to the workshop. But that's not what this workshop's about. It's also not the way it's run.
James?
The problem with having the citizens be able to make endless comments in a workshop like this is the work of the workshop won't get done. The work of the workshop is for the legislatures and the board to try to come to some kind of agreement about what to do. And whenever I've been in a meeting with endless discussion from endless people, nothing gets done. And like Ben said, they can have all the town hall meetings they want. It's not our responsibility to provide the legislators with a town hall meeting. It's our responsibility to do all we can to ensure the integrity of the election. Period. That's all of our responsibility.
I agree.
Okay. I don't really have anything else to add. I mean,
I would like to say that I had a conversation with Representative Mathiak about potential changes to 769. The primary one being the fact that it ties our hands such that we can't call an emergency meeting, because any meeting that we call, we have to provide at least 24 hours notice. Well, an emergency is not going to wait for 24 hours. So she seemed receptive to changing that and a few other things. So we have had that conversation at this point.
So, I mean, just like with the bylaws, if we all collectively want to circulate, our top X number of issues we want to bring up and see if we can get them deduped and/or prioritized so that, we can bring them in such a way that's not going to take an immense amount of time or effort to try to communicate, or we're not duplicating each other's efforts, or, that I think would be appropriate, so. Anything else, Stephanie, in regards to that? Yeah, okay, yeah, okay, so that, I mean, so Jim, I mean, I had not planned on not having public comment at that meeting, so would having public comment at that meeting serve the purpose that you're seeking to fulfill?
It would not be a back and forth conversation with
Right.
with the public, but it would at least give them the opportunity if they chose to present issues during public comment that the legislators could then address.
I find that interesting. If I were a citizen sitting through a workshop, I would like to respond to the dialogue that's happening real time instead of something that my comments begin the meeting. In other words, I think the intent is, certainly if it's 15 minutes at the beginning of a workshop, there is some degree of involvement, but it's not the same thing of hearing the representatives speak and interface with us and then respond. So I don't know,
Okay, well, I mean, we're,
we'll take what we can take, but I'm still advocating for the interaction with the representatives.
okay. I mean, I don't think that would actually be a workshop. It would turn into essentially a town hall, or it probably would turn into just arguments, honestly.
Well, that would not really be our meeting. That
And
would
that would
be
not
the
be our-
legislators'
yeah, that- it
meeting
would
if
turn-
that was, and it would be a town hall.
Yeah, let me rephrase that. Doing it that way would turn it into something else entirely. And that was not, that's not this meeting, as Roy said. We could do another meeting if everybody agrees and do something that way, but again, I don't see it being, our charter or our responsibility to help, voters, constituents talk to their elected representatives, of which, they should have their mobile numbers published, their, state emails published, and there's, ample opportunity for anyone to contact them. And it's up to them to, open up the lines of communication there, or communicate back. Roy, I think you had your hand up. You're good. Okay. So I think the only action item there would be for us to attempt to get a board list together, as well as individual concerns to get together for this upcoming legislative session, right? Okay. All right, moving on. Kim, I understand you've probably got a report for us?
I do.
Bet you got a lot of
5
stuff to
pages.
share. 5 pages, okay, well, we're ready for it.
All right. Report on November the 8th, 2022 general election process, logic and accuracy of all voting equipment. LNA, just a reminder, is always open to the public. Also, I recommend and encourage the board members, I know some of you have in the past, to come and observe to acquire more in-depth understanding of this process and the time involved to complete logic and accuracy testing. Just a reminder, logic and accuracy testing is required on all equipment being deployed for Election Day. LNA was conducted on 183 ballot marking devices, along with 183 printers, 19 scanners, and 45 poll pads. During the initial process of readying poll pads for Election Day, and here, just let me be clear, there are several steps in readying equipment for Election Day, especially with the poll pads. In this instance, a few of the poll pads did not reflect the precinct assignments submitted by our office to No Inc. for deployment. We submitted the request for correction, and the corrections were immediately made by No Inc. LNA was completed in a timely manner. A reminder here, LNA is always completed on the Saturday prior to the election. Why is that? On Saturday prior to the election, the bulk upload from advance early voting to the poll pads is conducted. Once a voter access card is encoded by the use of the poll pad and tested on the ballot marking device once more to ensure a ballot is generated to vote, LNA is then completed. Early voting for the November 8th, 2022 general election, due to a large turnout of age 75 years and age and older, 75 years of age and older and disabled on the first day, we implemented an additional processing station, and on day 2, early voting operated smoothly with a wait time of 15 to 45 minutes while averaging 15 to 20 minutes the majority of the time, and many times less than 15 minutes. Again, we're talking about the November 8th advance voting, early voting for the November 8th general election. There were 12,418 voters to cast a vote during early voting for this election. Also during early voting, a fake ballot was discovered on the Wednesday morning, October 19th. Please see attached the email sent to the board in reference to this discovery. That's the very first email that I sent out to you other than the night before when the decision was made to do the ballot removal process. As a reminder, it was through the due diligence of balancing in absentee in-person records to the equipment totals as to how the fake ballot was found. It was not by the equipment itself. I just want to be clear there. The scanner was over one in ballot scan. Therefore, a voted removal process took place to hand count the ballots. Shortly into stacking the ballots for easier counting, the fake ballot was found. We proceeded with the counting and excluding the fake ballot. Ballots cast equaled that of the ballot marking devices and absentee applications process. We counted the ballots twice to ensure we had counted correctly. I have emailed Blake Evans, Director for Elections at the Secretary of State's office several times in reference to the fake ballot found and for an update on the Secretary of State investigation. To date, I have not received a response or the wand, which the state said was distributed at the time Dominion equipment was distributed, and stated that I would be sent a wand. The wand should detect whether paper is of security standards or not. So I just want to make you all aware of that as the board. The printing of more than one ballot was also experienced twice in early voting for this election. As soon as I was notified, the printers were removed from the early voting precinct, and the state requested to take possession of the printers. We released the printers to the state but have not received any follow-up information regarding this issue. The state replaced the 2 printers taken with 2 new printers. Election Day, again for November 8th, general election. The 2 main issues we faced on this election day, but we are able to quickly resolve, are the following. Poll pad connections become loose after a period of use, and poll workers were unable to code voter access cards. Remember, this is just here sporadically, here and there throughout the day that this happens. We have learned through trial and error, and it is taught in poll worker training, that once this begins to happen, to unplug all attachments, replug, and this resolves the issue 99% of the time. Okay.
Kim, real quick, I know that there was the request from, I guess, No Inc. or the state for like the cellular connected poll pads or whatever, for us to get like the beta or trial or whatever for that. Has there been any updates on?
I've
on
not.
that?
I know we're on the list.
Well,
I did
okay.
not opt to be at
Right.
the top of the list because I thought that would not be a good decision
and
in a
we-
general election.
Yes, ma'am.
But we're on the list. I've not received an update on that.
So we're not,
We have not
we're-
received those.
and I'm not in any hurry for us to be getting those either. Was kind of curious to see if that would actually, I'm assuming it's just
True.
going to be a cellular enabled iPad. or if it's totally different equipment.
Whether it changed the encoder attachment, how that attached, because that's really the huge problem
Right,
there.
I mean, that's where I'm getting
Yeah.
at, is if they could fix that as well as the connectivity issue, that would be
Mm-hmm. Yes.
huge. So, okay, thank you.
That's one of our biggest problems.
Yes, ma'am.
The printer and BMD, again, that's your ballot marking device. There are continued issues with ballot marking devices and printers communicating with one another. The two pieces of equipment communicate well for a period of time, but we have noticed that if the printer runs out of security paper or for just no reason, the two pieces at times will quit communicating, and then it is necessary to unplug and replug the printer, which will aid in resetting the BMD, your ballot marking device. The times cast on the BMD keeps up during this process as we have watched this closely. Simply put, for the most part, this issue can be resolved, but is very aggravating. So,
Just real quickly, because this is going to wind up being a question.
Okay.
The communication is by wire, not by Bluetooth or by.
They're connected via a USB cable.
Yeah, okay, exactly, but it's a
Exactly.
hardwire connection.
yes,
Yes, sir.
it is.
Okay, so it is happening when it runs out, but also it's happening every time when it runs out, but then sometimes when, just randomly, or?
Just randomly for the most
Okay.
part. And you don't know because the voters left and another voter's walked up and there's an
Right.
error message. So you may not know what actually caused it. But
Okay.
we do know that the printer running out of paper
That would be
cause a
expected to-
disconnect, and then you have to reconnect. Basically, also, it's always noticeable when you very first open the BMD and the printer, everything's turned on. You have to unplug and replug every single
Yeah,
time.
I think
Now,
that- I
you're not
think
unplugging and you're not turning on a BMD and a printer during the day on election day. I'm just saying, when you're setting up
When
for
we're setting
LNA, when you're setting up for election day,
I think the BMDs boot up faster than the printers do. It's probably the root cause there, but.
And and that was, a learning curve as time went on, but it still has not resolved it in full. But we turn on the printers first and then boot up the BMDs, hoping that will, but it's still an issue. And I'm just making you aware of those issues.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's see, early processing of absentee ballots. During early processing of absentee ballots and when processing EBD UOCAVA ballots, the following occurred. So EBD is electronic ballot delivery. That's when a UOCAVA voter requests for an absentee ballot to be electronically delivered to them. Okay, then they in return mail it to our office. Once they've voted it, printed it, voted it, they mail it to our office. So our office does not process EBD ballots, only on the inside when it's mailed to, or on the end when it's mailed to us. EBD ballots, I believe I've already told you that, but anyway, EBD ballots, once received by our office, must be duplicated by the vote review panel onto an actual ballot for the appropriate precinct combo. As the vote review panel was duplicating the voter's choice onto an actual ballot, it was discovered that the EBD ballot had the incorrect county commission race on it. Therefore, this voter had not been able to vote in the appropriate county commission race. I forwarded this information to the state and have not received an explanation. So
But to be clear, the state sent that out wrong, not us.
that's right. And I even went back to all the way to the map. So, just checking behind ourselves, human error. And that precinct, that combo was correct on our end. So, all right, so report on the December 6, 2022 general runoff election. Logic and accuracy was conducted on 80 ballot marking devices, 80 printers, 20 scanners, and 45 poll pads. LNA was completed in a timely manner. I didn't put everything that I put the first time because I don't need to bore you with reading it again. But early voting, we added a fourth processing station for this election and moved voters at a timely rate as possible. The turnout of this election was higher than the November election. Voters did have a longer wait time for the December early voting due to the volume of turnout. I checked several times throughout the week at different times of the day, and the longest I ever confirmed was approximately an hour and 20 minutes. The issue with early voting is the space. We have been and are continuing to address this issue and know that there must be a change for 2024. However, I am still confident that we process voters efficiently and in a timely manner considering the volume. I waited in line in early 2021 for at least 3 hours. I did not complain. There were very few complaints due to the wait time. Voters seemed to understand we were working hard to expedite the process as much as possible. Election Day, again, I'm not going to read those same issues for the most part, poll pad connections, printer, and BMD. Things that we can resolve, but we have no control over that they become issues. There were 2 incidents during early voting where 911 was called to assist voters. One voter indicated low blood sugar as an issue, and the other followed up with our office that fluid on the ears had possible caused the dizziness. I remained with both voters, completed incident reports, and waited until 911 arrived and until a voter was able to go home. Overall, both elections went very well, but as always, I will continue to be transparent in any consistent issues that are experienced during the election process. Please know that we are looking at ways of what we can improve, what can we make better. We're not just going to be satisfied. Also know that the turnaround time between an election and a runoff is very, very small. We had phone calls to our office the day after the November 8th election ready for their absentee ballot. It does not happen that way. We didn't receive data till, I believe it was a week and a half to 2 weeks later. So you cannot conduct LNA until you have election data. You cannot order absentee ballots until you have election data. So just a reminder to the board, as you speak with, those that you encounter day-to-day basis, that it is a very short period of time, and our office worked many, many overtime hours to make what happened happen. And that's why we came out as well as we did. All of the absentee ballots arrived on a Monday of Thanksgiving week. We had all of those there. That's a processing in of those absentee ballots. You just don't open a box and mail out an absentee ballot. And but all absentee ballots that we had received, which was over 1,200, were mailed out by that Wednesday. So we did the very best. I'm very proud of our team. They worked very hard. Other general information, Billy Preston, Sandra Hardy, and I will be attending a Jarvis, I think is what they're calling it, conference in Athens. That's the new voter registration system from January the 4th through January the 6th. Gavrio Conference will be held on Jekyll Island February 13th through February the 16th. Billy Preston and I will be attending that conference. To you all, deadline for registration is January the 13th. I did send out an email to you all. You can attend it virtually, but that registration deadline is January the 13th. So I'm not going to be around for a little bit the next 2 weeks, so just make sure you get any information just as soon as you can.
Do you have any idea when they will provide an agenda for that?
I don't.
Okay.
Reminder that the legislative workshop with local legislators, as you all know, we discussed earlier, is scheduled for January the 3rd. I received an email from Josh with the Secretary of State just today, and it looks like the reimbursement of the redistricting postage will be on its way soon. I was very glad to hear this is a reimbursement of $16,000. So we turned that in back in June and followed up, and then elections happened, and just today I received an email from Josh with Secretary of State's office. So hopefully that's on its way soon. Reminder, my door is always open for questions or concerns, whether that is for the board or whether that is for the public. And I desire to address those concerns in a professional manner rather than seeing board members take part in conversations on social media, which can be viewed as a negative perception of any staff's actions. I, along with employees of the Elections and Voter Registration Office, work tirelessly to ensure Spalding County elections are fair, transparent, and exemplify integrity. With power comes responsibility, no matter who we are. An observation since becoming election supervisor is that all board members and myself had established an amicable working relationship after the workshop conducted early on by Trudy. All 5 members at one time were involved in the election process. This has not existed in the last 2 elections. Please consider placing differences aside and serve the people of Spalding County by doing your part as a board member. Thank you to the board members who continue to support the office and take part in the election process. It is truly appreciated. Thank you, and Merry Christmas to you all.
Thank you, Kim. And thanks to everybody else in office and all the poll managers and workers and everybody for all the hard work. I know
And if
it's,
I can add in there real quick,
Yes,
because I
ma'am,
should have
please.
said that.
Yeah, well,
All departments, and I did send out to the paper, and it's in the paper as well, a big thank you, but all departments that were involved. We have a great county. I mean, when the need is there, they step in and they get the job done, and they have been awesome. Every department has, from Kelly and Leisure Services to Lance Griffin. Yeah, it's been, and then the staff as well. So, and anyway, just thank you to all those involved.
I don't know that people realize that there's 95 people that come onto your staff to put that election on, either early voting or for the election day. And that's a huge number of people to manage just with regular issues, not even counting the urgency of getting the election done correctly and, you know, everybody to be facilitated as best you can. That's a huge undertaking.
Poll managers, poll workers, I'm just going to tell you, they're like my family. They're like my little children. And they just do an awesome job. They do a great job, and I'm very thankful for them. Can't have an election without them.
definitely not. Thank you, Kim. Roy, since you'd already started, if you want to, we can move on to comments.
Oh, a couple of things. So when we hired Kim August of last year,
Third,
okay.
she started on third.
Yeah, and we didn't really establish a annual review process, and that's something I think that we need to get on the calendar. It's not fair to Kim for us to have expectations that she doesn't know, and it's not fair for her that we put expectations on her that we haven't told her. So at some point in the near future, I think we need to have an annual review, probably, make it the same time every year. And you may have some input into when that should be based on your work schedule. Probably not while you're trying to be on vacation and burning up 300 hours of comp time that you've earned. So we need to look at that. Another thing is overtime, not only for the office staff, but for the workers. You may not know this, but Kim was able to secure lunches for the poll managers and workers this time. That's a really huge benefit, and as I went around and talked to every single precinct, the people that are there, the number one thing that they said to me was they wanted to be there, they wanted to be part of the process, and they appreciated Kim getting them lunch. And that was a really, really big thing. I don't know what it cost, but it would have been cheap at 5 times the price. But we need to look at other ways of compensating and taking care of those 95 people. If it is a little better pay, if it's some other thing that we can do, that's a 14-hour day, not counting getting up and getting there and tearing down and putting everything away at the end of your shift. So I don't think people realize the level of
Effort.
when the people are, they're being dedicated, the level of dedication that goes into that. But I think we as a board need to support Kim and whatever she comes up with to be able to keep those folks there. I don't know what it would cost us to retrain a single poll manager or a poll worker, but the number is going to be big, and we need to figure that into our next budgets for elections in 2024 especially. So maybe that's a subcommittee or something that gets together and helps Kim with that, or maybe you've got this already handled and I just don't know about it, but it's something we need to definitely have on our radar, is that the training and the care and feeding of, I use that term, of our poll workers is a really big, important thing. It will cost us a lot of money to replace any of those that decide to leave. So we need to try to do what we can on the front end to keep them. The last thing I want to say is, and something that you kind of mentioned earlier, was talking to the media. And I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but there have been a lot of interviews given to media lately that are not helpful. And it really is hurtful to see something that you should have said to me as a person, to see it written in some rag that might be out there on a news shelf somewhere. And trust me, I see all of that. You think you're being secretive about it or whatever, but it's going to come back up. And it's not helpful for this board, and it's not helpful for our relationships. And if you decide that you're going to go out and do an interview, just beware. That's all I'll say. That's all I have.
Thank you, Roy. Jim,
No comments?
you good? Okay. James?
The level of commitment that it takes to be a poll worker, the level of commitment that it takes to be a poll worker
It's closer.
You got to get about this far.
is not something that every person has. And that makes our poll workers precious because they have that commitment. And when you lose one, you have to find somebody else with that degree of commitment that will go in and work that hard for a day for basically minimum wage.
Yes.
Yeah. Part-time, not even really part-time, just occasional work. There's not a lot of people even that are able to do that, because if you have to make a living every day, you can't tell your boss, I'm taking off this week to work early voting. You just can't do it. So I agree that we have to work on our relationships with our occasional employees, the poll managers, the poll workers. They are the election process. They really are. I mean, as Kim said, you can't hold an election without them. And I served, not with full knowledge of what I was getting into, on the vote review panel this year. It was an eye-opener. The vote review panel has to handle every single absentee and UOCAVA vote, anything that doesn't appear normal, we have to adjudicate. We have to try to decide what the voter meant, which usually is easy, but not always. And we have to copy that ballot, and that too takes quite a bit of time. And this year, we not only had to do it once, but we had to do it twice. So that was about as big a commitment as being a poll worker on election day, but it was just spread out over a little more time. So I don't know if that's better or worse. But it gave me a real appreciation, because I was sitting in the office so many hours, of what they take care of. And I really appreciate it. And I am proud of where our staff is, since we started out with just Mary. Just Mary. And then we had Mary and Kim. And now we have a staff that is able to handle anything that comes up. It's incredible to me how well this has gone. And of course, in large part, that's due to Kim, her professionalism, and I think Kim puts in a lot more hours than anybody planned that she would. And Kim, I want to thank you personally for your dedication, because not everybody would be that dedicated.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Jim. I do.
Good. Yeah, so just have to echo that for sure. I fully expected that, like back in the 2012 to 2014 days, that I would have to be in the office doing the uploading and all this kind of stuff or whatever, and like, you don't even need me. So I'm happy at that, and super proud, and I mean, all the other things as far as building an office staff that's working as a team, and I'm hoping that we as a board can maybe take some cues from you and see if we can get better together. But I guess you know, I saw where Raffensperger is making recommendations to go to ranked choice or extend early voting, or there was a third option that he's going to be pushing to the legislature. I can't remember the third option. And so I got curious and looked, and you know, Georgia and Louisiana are the only two states that do runoffs the way we do runoffs. And I agree that it's, you know, it's not ideal. It's kind of a problem. And, you know, the vast majority of the other states, depending on the election, depending on and even the race, and if it's a municipality, et cetera, but the vast majority of the other states simply just, you know, whoever gets the plurality, that's who wins. And I'm kind of shocked and amazed that, like, that's not one of the options that our Secretary of State is, you know, suggesting to the legislature. That doesn't make any sense to me. That why are we going to try to do something even more different than everybody else when we're the only folks having a problem with that? So just want to bring that up. I'm sure that's going to come up and be something that I'm sure we'll be discussing more, and that's obviously something that one of the reasons I particularly wanted to meet with the legislators. And, you know, beyond that, just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and hope everybody has a Happy New Year. Roy, do you need?
Just one alibi. I forgot to bring up, in January, we'll start scanning of the documents that are in storage, and so
Okay.
I'll be getting with Stephanie and staff to try to establish a date to get that process started, but probably around the middle of the month, I would think. Let the dust settle from the holidays a little bit, and we'll try to get something on the calendar pretty quick.
Okay, thank you, Roy. With that, motion to adjourn would be in order. Jim, second James, all in favor? We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.